Also, our Monday morning tradition to do these wonderful Zoom calls that we have been taking on for, gosh, now 2 months now. It's hard to believe, but it's been 2 months since the shelter-at-home order went into place back in March. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Bettina Swigger, and I'm the CEO of Downtown SLO. And with me co-hosting the call is Garrett Olson of Resolute Associates and Rachel Maiorino, the COO of Downtown SLO. So we have been hosting these calls for you every Monday morning at 10 a.m. We hope that they are helpful to you. This is a chance to hear from people in the community how they are responding and recovering to the COVID-19 crisis and trying to uncover and decode all of the changing information as it is happening around us. So some of you may remember that I have been working on a 2,000-piece puzzle, and I'm delighted to report that I finished that puzzle. And then I started another one because I love a challenge. And the puzzle that I started over this weekend is 750 pieces, so a little bit more manageable. But about a quarter of the way into doing it, I realized that the puzzle has no edges, which means it's really hard. And if that is not the perfect analogy for what we are dealing with right now, I don't know what else is. So anyway, we're not going to be doing a jigsaw puzzle on the screen today, but I thought I would share that with you all today. Also, a little bit of housekeeping for you. Next week is Memorial Day, and we will be taking that day not meeting. So the first Monday in a while that we will not meet, just mark that in your calendar. And we're actually going to have a new Zoom link after that, starting June 1st, because we're going to be password protecting our Zoom meeting. We want to make sure we don't get bombed by any of those weirdos that are out there doing crazy things in Zoom rooms. So we'll send that link out, but next Monday, enjoy your time off and think about the people that we have lost. Just a little bit of housekeeping. So we have our speaker view in the top right. I recommend using that feature. Something else that I have discovered is that you can hide yourself, which really makes these whole meetings a lot more pleasant. And to do that, you just mouse over your little 3 dots in the right corner of your window and use the hit hide self view. We do want to hear from you with your questions. So if you have questions, please send them in the chat, and we will respond to those either when the appropriate speaker is speaking or as they come up. So feel free to use the chat with great efficacy. Here is your Downtown SLO Board of Directors. Thank you very much to each of you for volunteering your time to our organization. We had a closed meeting last week, and there are going to be some announcements coming up, but at this time, we will just proceed and honor your work there. Thanks for being a part of our organization and for stepping up into lead during this very challenging time. So a little bit about where we are. We don't have steps, we don't have phases, we just have numbers here for you. So we are currently in all 4 of these different phases, but I did want to share one interesting piece of information that I got out of a conversation with the International Downtown Association, which is a professional organization we belong to, last week. And that is that instead of talking about recovery, I'm going to start using the term reboot, because I think that's actually a little bit more of what we are looking at. So you'll note that that's kind of months away, but as we know from the last 2 months, months can feel like years, days can feel like months, minutes can feel like hours, and then suddenly the season will pass. So thank you for bearing with me on my little ontological diatribe there, but we are still in a public health crisis. There is a disease out there that is easily transmitted and is growing in some areas. We're trying to decode that information. We're trying to get economic relief, and we're looking to reboot our downtown. So Garrett, can you take it away and talk a little bit about where we are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Bettina. So we're still sitting in the mid 200s in terms of cases here in SLO County, and thankfully yesterday, no new cases reported. It had been a while since we'd had that kind of success. Our hospital numbers stay low, and as you probably recall from the county's guidance document on reopening, one of those metrics is, well, actually two of those metrics are the number of new cases and our hospital capacity, and both of those metrics are sitting really well for us to be able to move forward. 2 people hospitalized, and we're still holding at 1 death in our county. CDC does continue to issue its recommendation regarding face masks and covering whenever social and physical distancing is not possible. And so we continue to see more and more businesses rolling that out as a condition of entry into their business. We know that the California Resilience Map has us beginning stage 2, I believe. Now they're calling it stage 2A. The amazing work that was done by this county on our phases still is relevant information, particularly those amendments in the back that talk about industry-specific guidance for best practices in public health. The unfortunate reality is there isn't a really clear math translation between the county's phases and the state's stages. And so our county is now deferring to state guidance on their stages. And so we continue to monitor adjustments in the state. The state is now allowing curbside retail only, or for retail, curbside only, and no dine-in restaurants. And they continue to recommend teleworking. And again, we are seeing this as the first stage. We know that there has been more relaxation of physical distancing and business practices across the nation. And we're about a week away from the incubation phase of those changes to see what happens in those other areas of the country that have taken a more liberal approach. And so here in California, we are taking a very conservative approach, and in our county following that guidance, and we know that our recovery will be gradual and in stages. So Bettina, did you want me to cover this, or was this one you wanted to cover?
No, I was muted for a minute.
Oh,
gosh,
okay.
you'd think we would have this completely down by now, but we're always still learning, right? So I did want to just do a little bit of clarification about what has been happening at the county level. And for those of you who are not living and breathing all of this information as it's coming out, there is a 3 times a week a conference that's on Facebook at the SLO County Public Health, and Dr. Borenstein gives updates at 3:15 Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The governor also gives updates generally at noon, and we are generally, as much as we can, watching those to try to figure out what's happening in real time so that we can push it out to you. Last week, one thing that you should probably keep in mind is that they put a cap of 50% on all the lodging, hotels, motels, and RV parks. So what this means is that while in normal times we would be looking forward to Memorial Day being kind of the start of the tourist season, that's not happening. And the county is taking really concerted efforts to make sure that we're sending a message out to people that because our county has not been as affected by this disease as others, even our surrounding counties, we want to make sure that people who are looking to get away don't want to come here and cause the disease to spread a little bit more. So this was a proactive step that went into effect last night, and we just wanted to share this information with you. Just a little bit more about the resilience roadmap. We do invite you to go to the California website at all times, basically, because the information is changing constantly. But there are some really helpful guidelines about what is allowed and what isn't. And as Garrett said, we are in that sort of stage 2A section. The numbers, the letters A, B, C, D aren't in this graph, but you can get the sense that we're still in this gradual reopening of retail. And what's important to point out is that our county and our city actually kind of took a more liberal approach to things than the state did in the very beginning. And so we were allowing curbside delivery and pickup, right? We put those parking meter covers on for the pickup and delivery zones. And we were encouraging businesses to do what they could to stay alive during the shelter at home order. That wasn't the case in all parts of the state. And so now we're kind of trying to align with what the expectation was from the state and what we were currently happening. But basically, in a nutshell, what that means is that not much has changed here. So it might feel like things are different, but they're really not that different. With that in mind, I'm going to invite Courtney now to talk about how things might actually be very different at Cal Poly at this time. Courtney, are you out there?
I am. Thank you, Bettina. And I'm going to start out, since Bettina just mentioned it, President Armstrong will be at the county's media briefing at 3:15 this afternoon. So if any of what I say is confusing, maybe that would be another time to tune in and get more details about what Cal Poly is planning. So there has been a lot of communication and media coverage in the last week about what Cal Poly is doing or planning to do in the fall. That's because Chancellor White, who oversees all of the 23 CSUs in California, announced that due to the uncertainty of the virus, that all the 23 CSUs need to be prepared to offer instruction in the fall primarily online. So we need to be ready to go 100% virtual from the beginning or at some point during, depending on what's happening in California at the time and in our county. This does not mean that Cal Poly cannot plan to offer in-person courses in the fall, but just that we have to be prepared to shift to virtual at any time. So our fall quarter starts on September 17th, and in just under a month, on June 15th, students can start registering for classes. So where I think some of the confusion is coming in is that we, Cal Poly, are hopeful that by September 17th or a few weeks before, we will be in stage 3. If we are in stage 3, that would mean that we've identified 15% of our about 7,000 classes that we could do that we need to do in person because of their hands-on requirements. And that is something that the chancellor has approved and said that he will make exceptions for. If we are still in stage 2, some of the considerations are pushing the quarter to start 2 to 4 weeks later, or to start virtually and have different options for classes where they would be able to shift to in-person should there be an opportunity and the health and safety guidelines would allow for that to happen. We're developing detailed plans for all of the different scenarios, keeping in mind the governor's plan, CSU guidelines, and working really closely with the county public health department. All of them include testing, tracing, isolation, and support when it comes to any offering of in-person classes, along with all the things that you all as businesses are looking at, including physical distancing, PPE, sanitation, and then a huge social media campaign around all of it. No matter what, faculty and staff are going to be given the option, if not required to do so, to work remotely. And the other big thing that we keep getting questions about is housing. So we are going to de-densify housing no matter what. We, in years past, have had close to 8,000 students living on campus. If we go to double rooms only, then we will have 7,000 students on campus. If we go to single rooms, we'll have capacity for 5,200 beds on campus. We are encouraging students to return to SLO, period. And that's if their health and personal situation permits and they're able to be flexible. So there's been some questions about that. And then finally, I just want to acknowledge that I realize it's confusing. I think a lot of us are trying to figure out state guidelines and county guidelines and everything in between, and we're in that boat. We're hoping for the best case scenario, but definitely preparing to be ready should things not go that direction. And then also wanted to leave you with our website, coronavirus.calpoly.edu. Every communication that is sent to students, staff, and faculty is posted there, along with all of our updates. So if you have questions, that's a great resource to go to at any point. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Courtney. Really interesting to hear from you that the university is encouraging students to come back to SLO. I'm curious if you could give some insight into what the reaction has been from both students and also from their parents. Are they responding positively to this? Do they have reluctance?
Yeah, so I would say all of it. We've had parents that are concerned. We've had students that are concerned. But we are the majority from and it's all, we are hearing from a certain population. Probably you're not always hearing from everybody, and we haven't done polling. Our enrollment is looking strong. So that's an indicator, but we are hearing, every aspect of it. I think that a lot of students are wanting to come back. They, for a lot of reasons, are wanting to be here, especially with the hope that we will have in-person offerings. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. I know there's a lot that's still to be determined, but so much of what we're trying to figure out right now is the confidence that people will have to return to public spaces, to businesses, if they want to, get back to what their normal life is, if they want to return to their jobs. I mean, so many people on this call employ Cal Poly students. That's such a vital part of our workforce downtown. So it sounds like you're kind of cautiously optimistic.
Yes, I would say that that's the feeling, but preparing for, whatever the science and public health directors and our situation at the time, but definitely hopeful.
Thank you so much, Courtney. I'd like to address a question that came up in the chat too. This was a little bit ago. We had a question from somebody about curbside retail, and I'm wondering if Lee Johnson from the city of SLO is on the line. The question is, can you put a table in front of your door? Is that the same as curbside pickup? Is that allowed? And what kind of messaging should I be telling our customers about shops that may be opening? Lee, are you out there?
I am, and I think somebody unmuted me so I can speak to it. Can you, somebody give me a thumbs up? Can you hear me? All right, perfect. I was going to give all of this update in my section, but I can give it now, or I can give at least part of it now. Curbside pickup is essentially somebody orders online or they call you on the phone and they say, I want to get XYZ from you. You agree, preferably you take payment from them over the phone or via the website. They drive up, they knock on your door, you open the door, you hand them whatever they ordered. If you have payment issues, not a lot of people are set up to take payment online, etc. Some places have set up like a table right inside the door so they can open the door. The person can come in, they're in PPE, they wipe down everything, they can pay, they can pick up their package and leave. So one-on-one in-store shopping is not allowed. Having people come to your window and pick stuff and buy it with you standing there like a street vendor is not allowed. From an enforcement perspective, the city will obviously, if people call and complain and everything, there will be follow-up. There's been no citations or anything like that issued to anybody. The concern from overall is, one, there's a health risk to doing something outside the governor's guidelines. The county website is very clear. If you go, I think Rachel can pop it up, but the county has a website that is on emergencyslo.org, and you just go to reopening information. It's clearly laid out who's allowed to be open. There's guidelines, there's checklists, there's a self-certification form for everybody for all types of businesses. If you have questions about that, there's a county hotline, which is 805-543-2444. And there's a city hotline, which is 805-783-7835. Or there's a form that you can fill on the city's website to ask questions. We're hopeful. The other risk to not following the state's guidelines is it will impact our ability to self-determine how we move through stage 2. We need to get approval from the governor the county has to get approval from the governor to be able to move through stage 2. if the governor is getting feedback that we are not able to manage our business, in other words, like we have too many tourists coming, that's why we have the 50% cap, or we have stores open that shouldn't be open, and that feedback can come from complaints or newspaper articles, let's say in the Trib on a Sunday on the front page. All of those things make it more difficult for Wade and Dr. Bornstein to get us approved to be able to move through this faster. So we're trying to work with everybody. We're trying to communicate what's happening, and we're taking the approach of education and communication rather than something else. But if somebody's creating public health risk, those kind of things, then we'll have something different to talk about. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, let me know.
It does. I mean, I think there are probably some feelings and confusion around that, given the safety and the criteria that's set. I'm wondering if you could talk about the specific, like the black marks that could go on our request to move into the next phase of the reopening.
Okay. So a couple things. One, the state has made it very clear if you get some sort of state license and you violate and you're not in compliance with the resilience roadmap, they will use whatever enforcement they decide to use. I've had some questions about that, and they say, well, how will they know? Well, probably if you're if you're one of the services that's not supposed to be open, or businesses not supposed to be open, and you are generating revenue, likely you will at some point have to pay taxes on that, and they will be able to see that that occurred when it shouldn't have. So I don't know what they would do with that. I can't speak for the state, but that's what they've said. For us as a county, Wade and Dr. Bornstein talked about last week, but one of the reasons we have not been able to reopen is we are a county that has relatively good measurements, but we are surrounded by places that don't. And we're a tourist location. So the fear is that if we open, then all those people will come from all of those places and come here, and we will just end up being a county with bad numbers as well, and an outbreak, and then more problems, and have to go backwards in the resilience roadmap. So we're really trying to avoid that and do all the things we can do to open at a safe pace and then be able to stay open rather than have to go backwards.
Thank you. So to all of the businesses out there who are operating within the state guidelines, which that should be all of you, where you are doing curbside pickup, people can call, place their order in advance, or place their order online, use Instagram, Facebook to contact you about the goods they want to purchase. The person comes to you, they buy their item, and then they leave. Thank you. You're doing the right thing. Great job. And everybody should be doing that. So I'm sure that if you have customers who are asking you about this question, you can just say, that you're trying to do the very best in our county's best interests to protect our, our area, and to hopefully move into a stage where the relaxation will come. But we don't have a timeline for it. And we're waiting so that we have all the right criteria to move to the next step. Oh, Lee is muted. I think he's still talking.
Oh, sorry. There's another question on the chat. You just want me to take that while I'm here?
Sure.
About restaurants. So restaurant in-restaurant dining is not allowed yet. It is kind of the next step in stage 2. We don't know when we'll hear about that. It could be any day. It just depends on a lot of things. But if you are a restaurant or you're retail, please go to the county website and take a look at the checklist and the self-certification and all of those things, so that you are ready to go. It tells you exactly what you need to do. You can self-certify all that stuff, and then you're ready to open when the time comes. So I would highly recommend that for everybody who is in stage 2, that the reopening date has not been determined, which is, in-store retail, destination retail, dine-in restaurants, etc. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Since we have you on the line, do you want to go ahead and give your update for us as well?
Okay, sure. As a follow-up to the businesses that are allowed to be open and things, I don't know if everyone's aware, but the city has maps on our website that show like restaurants that are open for pickup and everything. And our normal maps that we have, like development in the downtown, that kind of stuff, get about 1,500 to 2,000 visitors a year. The dining map, for example, has had 15,000 uses in 30 days. So you can sign up to be put on that list. There's a virtual shopping list. We're going to keep updating it. As we go through the stages, you'll be able to add yourself to that list. So please go to the city's website and the business resources page under the COVID section, and there's a link to it and a way to sign up. We are also working actively, going to council on Friday at the Disaster Council. Will be kind of a strategy to help in downtown provide more space, not only for social distancing, but also for outdoor dining and other activities. Part of that will be things like having Mission Plaza or Lot 10 have some tables and chairs, appropriately social distance, that will be cleaned by city staff, that will be available for people to take takeout and then go there and dine to give all the restaurants and things more capacity. We look at selectively closing portions of streets so that we can then also get additional space. There may be pop-up things in parking lots for additional space, looking at parklets, all of that kind of stuff. There was a group of architects and other people involved with Councilmember Peace to put together a plan, and that again is coming to council on Friday at 12:30. That would be it for my update.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I did serve on that task force with Councilmember Pease, and she was here 2 weeks ago talking about this. So we do invite, if you're interested in providing feedback, you can do so to the City Council by sending an email to emailcouncil@slocity.org. And they will be reviewing this on Friday, May 22nd at their Disaster Council meeting. So thanks to the city for taking such progressive steps on this. I know this has been something that's gone on in many, many communities, and we're going to see a transformation of the way that we use public space for dining, for queuing, for all kinds of ways to support our small businesses as we move into the recovery stage. Let's see, I got a little bit off track from our normal agenda. We do also have another representative from the city. Let's go to Gaven Hussey, who is the Director of Parking Services. Gavin, are you on the line?
I am. I'm the manager. I'm not the director.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. So hopefully we'll be able to have some good news in the next couple of weeks. We are going to be presenting to council our suggestions for parking on June 2nd. These suggestions regarding parking is the suspension of meter fees until October, suspension of payment in the parking structures until October, and then offering some reduced rate parking options for staff after October in the parking structures and the 10-hour meters. Beyond that, we are looking at offering validations for customers in the structures through January of 21 to help incentivize customers to come back downtown. So we're trying to do a lot, and some of these go before council on June 2nd, like I said. We also are going to get some new meter bags in, hopefully today, fingers crossed. We ordered them about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. It's just slow delivery. So for those curbside pickup zones, if you need them, we're trying to expand the amount we're able to offer. So we'll be transitioning those bags from the red no parking spaces to a reserved orange bag over the next week or so once we get those meter bags in. And then we're also trying to bring some mobile app payment options to the city and some parking meter or parking pay station meters. So consolidating our pay stations around the city and starting to remove some of the parking meters. So a couple of big things coming hopefully this summer, and hopefully I'll have some great news as of June 2nd when we go to City Council.
Great, Gavin, we'll look forward to sharing sharing our input on that plan. And thank you so much for all of the work that you've done. You started in your position, I believe, in the beginning of February, is that correct?
Yeah, I had about a month of honeymoon, and then we dove into COVID. So it's, yeah, we're all getting through it together, and we're all figuring it out. But hopefully, we'll be able to help transition and, encourage people to come to downtown again. So really want to work with all the business partners out there.
Yeah, and we really appreciate all of the work that you did. I mean, the SLO Happy You're Here, this mural here by Canned Pineapple, the City of SLO Promotional Coordinating Committee did this, and it got finished 2 weeks ago. It's absolutely so bright and brilliant. I encourage you to go downtown and check it out. One other thing that I do want to acknowledge, and Gavin and I have spoken about this a number of times, but I would like to call to the people on this call. Please make sure that you are communicating to your employees as they're coming in to work under the limited services that are allowed under the stay-home order. Your employees should really try to park in the 10-hour meters or outside the main areas of downtown. We did put in those quick 5-minute pickup and drop-off zones, but the intent is to keep the main thoroughfares on Monterey and Higuera Street open so that people can not be so impacted by the traffic. So I just want to encourage you, if you are a business owner and you're going downtown, park a couple blocks away and walk in and make it easier for people to come in and spend their money.
Correct.
Anything else, Gavin?
No, I mean, if people have requests from us, please email us at parkinginfo@slocity.org. We'll try to get anything that you have or concerns about. We'll try to address them. We are taking a very laid-back approach to parking enforcement at this time. So we're just enforcing safety violations out there. We have a couple people parking in front of fire hydrants today, so we're trying to clear that up. We understand work's still going to happen, but we had a couple other requests for the curbside pickup zones, and we'll be expanding the number of zones that we have out there this week. So
thanks again, Gavin.
Happy to help.
Let's go to Judy Mahan with the SBDC now. This time, Judy, are you out there? Judy.
So I'm unmuting myself. I think, can you hear me, Bettina?
Yes, hello.
Thank you. I'll start the video as well. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me this morning. So I am going to share my screen real quick. So I'm here representing the Cal Poly CIE Small Business Development Center. We're typically located in the Hot House, just above Ross. And currently we are virtual. We are reopening our offices under all the safety guidelines. A soft reopening today, this week, but a more formal reopening next week under the guidelines. Maintaining social distancing with our tables for co-working. We have PPE equipment throughout the Hot House for anyone who needs it. And there's our receptionist, when you walk in, will explain all the processes for being able to spend time in our space. So just a quick update on that. I am going to share my screen to provide an update on the PPP loan forgiveness process. Here we go. So this came out on May 15 at the end of the day, around 5 p.m., at the very end of the day, Friday. I'm not going to go into the details of this document because it is pretty extensive, and it will be very dependent on each employer's situation with their business and their hiring and the number of employees that they have and the amount of payroll that they have. Lots of specific scenarios are outlined in this document. This document, which I'm going to share a link to in the chat box, provides very detailed step-by-step instructions to calculate your loan forgiveness. So this is the area in which we had a tremendous amount of questions because we had not received the SBA guidelines yet to help us figure out the process on what the forgiveness amount of the loan will look like. We knew big picture that you had to spend 75% on your loan on payroll and 25% max on other expenses that included rent, interest payments, and utilities. But we didn't have much information beyond that. This document provides detailed instructions. What was interesting to see is the SBA has provided options to calculate payroll costs to align with the borrower's payment cycle. So we had a lot of questions about payroll cycles and how to align those with the time of receipt of the loan. The SBA has allowed for a tremendous amount of flexibility around that to benefit the borrower, to benefit the employer. There is also flexibility around when expenses are paid or incurred during the 8-week period. So we were pleased to see that. Again, the details are in this document. If the employer is able to rehire to the full-time employee number that he or she was at before February 15, 2020, by June 30th, there are exemptions from the loan forgiveness reduction. There was some discussion that the loan forgiveness would be reduced. You wouldn't get full loan forgiveness if you didn't rehire immediately your full-time number of employees and get your payroll amount back to where it was at prior to February 15. There's now a lot more flexibility with that. As long as there's been a good faith effort to get back to those numbers by June 30th, the SBA will exempt you from the reductions that they had planned to implement on the loan forgiveness piece. And one really important thing that employers need to track and make sure that they have a paper trail for is that if they made a good faith offer to rehire their workers and the workers declined the offer to go back to work, they will be, the borrower, the employer will be able to get an exemption from that loan forgiveness reduction as well. So this document, those are the big picture items. I know it sounds pretty complex when you're just explaining it verbally. So I do recommend that everyone go through this document. There is a calculation tables, very detailed instructions, and you have to go all the way to the very last page is a worksheet basically. So there is a worksheet here that employers have to go through to completely understand exactly where they're at on their loan forgiveness piece. So I'm going to share this document in the chat immediately. We do recommend that you work with your accountants to go through the worksheet and or your banker. And we do have some accountants through the SBDC that can also provide some assistance and some guidance to help you get going on this document to completely understand and be able to project out how to manage your loan and the use of your loan over the next 8-week period. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. I know that there is some additional resources maybe coming from the Senate. They'll be voting on an additional stimulus bill this week. Are you getting any feeling from your sources that that is likely to pass, that it's not likely to pass? Any insider baseball for us?
That's a tough one. No, I know insider knowledge. If I had to guess, and from what I am hearing from some legislators that have spoken to our region at the top level of the SBA, it is highly likely we will see more stimulus. So I would just call it highly likely. Under what circumstances, I don't know. There's a lot of discussion around providing additional assistance that's very targeted to very small business, Main Street business, for sure. So hence I think it's called the SOS Act that is currently being reviewed. So we're hoping that we will see more in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Thank you. Appreciate your updates and your time and your care. So I know that funding has been helpful for people. I believe there are still funds for the PPP. My understanding is that the applications have actually declined somewhat, in part because many employers are uncertain about their ability to hire people and expend the funds in the time that the loan dictates. But I think I read something that said there were $1.2 billion still in the fund. Is that right?
I'm not sure on the exact amount, to be honest. I know they have not been depleted because they are still accepting applications as of now. Here in SLO County, from the amounts that we have been able to track in our county has hit approximately just over $11 million in funding. But we know that we haven't tracked it all yet, and we're still getting feedback from our clients. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Judy. And up next, we have Jim Dantona with the SLO Chamber.
Hi there, Bettina. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing, Jim?
Doing good. Hanging in there. Thanks for having us again, as always. Wanted to just kind of highlight, obviously, this Wednesday night, we are doing our first virtual mixer, which should be pretty fun. We're actually thinking, you know, if you've come to our mixers before, this might be slightly different in that you will may actually do more networking than just hanging out with a friend that you normally hang out with. So I think it'll be really great. We're going to mix and match people and get things going. So already having a pretty great response to that. But if you head over to the SLO Chamber website, you can register and click in and see a few people in our mixer on Wednesday. Thursdays are standard webinar days. This time, this week, we're looking at having some folks actually talk about the details, because this is what we keep getting questions on, like, well, what does this mean and what does that mean? So we're trying to get all these pieces in one place. Obviously, we won't get them all, but to give more concrete information about what to expect. And so hopefully that's at this Thursday from 2 to 3. We're locking in all of our speakers, but we should have some folks that helped work on the start guide, give us some of those best practices for our retail, restaurants, we're hoping. So check that out. Last week we had County Supervisor Compton, Dr. Ritter, and Andrew Hackelman on talking about this switchover between the state program and the county's reopening guide and what was the difference. So if you haven't had a chance to see that, recommend you go check that out you can check it out on our Facebook page. And then every Friday we do from 12 to 12:30, we're still doing working lunches, just a half-hour fun kind of conversation, get to know some key leaders in our community. Last week it was Assemblyman Jordan Cunningham, and talking about what's happening in Sacramento, how that looks you know, during this time, and how it's much different than it was before. And this week, actually, such a cool interview will be with Wendy Wendt from First 5 California. So to talk about one of the things as we get to this reopening, the idea of childcare is going to be a huge issue. And so we're hoping to kind of peel into that, but get to know Wendy and talk about some of those challenges and how we're going to have to deal with them as people may get released to go to work, but also maybe schools will be open, maybe they won't. It might be summer already, or is it in the fall? How's that looking? So a really interesting conversation. So we're really excited about it. And, you know, again, thanks for everything that the Downtown SLO is doing for our retail and our vendor, all of our retailers downtown. We're so appreciative that you have us here.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Okay, we got the City of SLO already. Wanted to let you all know that in light of the new guidelines that have been released by the state, and thanks to a very generous sponsorship from Guaranteed Rate Mortgage, thank you, Donna Lewis, we are putting out some wonderful We Got This kits, and these are free of charge to all of our downtown SLO businesses. We have sanitizer, gloves, face masks, paper towels, and a little bit of a information sheet with some of the links that we've shared out in the chat today. And you can come to our office today from 12 to 2 and pick up your spot. There is a section on in the Facebook business group, where you can sign up for a kit. And here's a picture of Mary Alice Hamilton from Blackwater, one of our board members, picking up her kit wearing a very hilarious face covering. Thank you for that. And yeah, we'll have these today and tomorrow from 12 to 2. So we distributed, I believe, 62 last week from our office, and we'll be distributing another probably 40 or 50 over the next couple of days. So now it's the time when we go into our polls, and I'm going to invite Garrett to take the lead talking about where our polls stood last week and walk us through where we are right now.
Thank you, Bettina. So again, last week, asking our 6 questions once again, and really the interesting fact is to watch that trend evolve over time. And so we see that the response, if you'll just go forward one slide in terms of our financial need, we can see that a dramatic decrease in the amount of access to stimulus funds. So hopefully these webinars and the information from Judy have been really, really helpful. It's bearing out in this poll. And we have seen a resurgence over the last 2 weeks of businesses that feel that you're on sure financial footing. And those two are maybe related. Also seeing a spike over the last week, you see there, of rent reduction going from about 12% requesting relief from that to greater than 40%. So something to watch as we move forward. Most pressing concern, again, this graph has stayed fairly consistent over the long haul, that we've seen that businesses, for the most part, have done a great job of transitioning. I won't use the P word, pivoting, because that's getting overused, but the lack of short-term revenue from customers and clients continues to be your most pressing financial concern. And then in terms of the time that this the SLO, Downtown SLO board uses to advocate on your behalf, again, we continue to see rent freeze or assistance being a real strong need for member agencies. And if we go forward one, we can see how that has been consistent throughout this entire time, that rent freeze and assistance is #1. How you see your current employer-employee payroll reality, if you'll go forward one, I will show you that that's good news, that the red line there soaring over the last 2 weeks are those businesses that are continuing with your pre-COVID staffing levels and don't anticipate changing in the near future. We've seen a decrease, that darker blue line, in furloughs of greater than 50%, and also a decrease in layoffs of greater than 50%. So hopefully those PPP funds are allowing you to bridge the gap, and before those run out, our business community will be able to open to allow us to continue on that same trajectory. Confidence that your business will reopen at previous levels of service and activity. Had just amazing, if you go forward one, had just amazing sense of resilience going into this crisis, and we see that a little bit of those who were uncertain, the green line up near the top, has decreased, while we're seeing people with a lower sense of optimistic outlook has increased. We are still seeing really good numbers, though, of folks right around 20% that have a very high sense of your ability to open at the previous service levels following the COVID crisis. And so that has been the bright spot. The dark spot is seeing people dropping from uncertain to low. And then we've seen just a tremendous amount of folks taking advantage of the PPP and the EIDL loans. Vast majority of you out there have applied for both. And as Judy referenced, if you haven't, there still is some capacity for you to take advantage of these loans. Consider those if they're good for your business. And that is our trend. And I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll for this week while we're moving to the next topic.
Thank you, Garrett. And while you all are taking the poll, it's really important for you to answer each of these questions because they do allow us to see trends. Obviously, this is not a statistically valid poll because there are what, 50 people on the call right now. But it does help us kind of get a sense for what the ground truth is out there in the community. So I want to take just a minute to thank Garrett, because Garrett has been at my side and working with me and Rachel on these weekly calls since actually before this disease hit our reality. We started working with Garrett on a strategic planning effort for our organization back in, gosh, October, I think?
A lifetime ago.
A lifetime ago. And Garrett has just been named officially the CEO of the SLO Food Bank. So congratulations, what a brilliant hire. I know you've been there over the last 7 weeks doing sort of interim management, and now you are officially the leader of that fantastic organization that is so critical for our community as we move through this reality. So I just want to say, Garrett, thank you so much for your service, for your insight, for your calm, and we're going to miss you. We're really going to miss you. So if there's anything you want to say.
I just want to say thank you. It really has been an unfortunate pleasure to see the strong leadership of Downtown SLO. Bettina leaning in early, and Rachel just doing an amazing job behind the scenes. Everything that's going well on this screen is her. And now that I'm officially the CEO of the food bank, I will be stepping back from these Monday meetings, but I will continue to be available to Bettina and to the board pro bono for as long as you need a couch to lay on and talk to somebody about what you're going through, or some advice on emergency management stuff. But this is a project and a membership that is so near and dear to the very reason why my wife and I moved here. And so it's just been an honor to be helping, and I look forward to continue to play a role while I transition and take on this new role that I have with my full focus.
Great. Well, thanks, Garrett. And to all of you business owners out there, you're going to see Garrett out shopping in your restaurants and dining in your stores, or however you say it. And I hope that you've enjoyed getting to know him through the process of doing these weekly meetings. So thanks, Garrett. I do see that in the chat there are a number of questions about the timeline, and we, like everybody else, are also wondering about the timeline. And I think there's a frustration about the exact specifics that just simply don't exist at this time. So I do want to just acknowledge all of the work that you have all put into trying to figure out just what the heck is going on from day to day. And we don't know what the timeline is. As we were talking about earlier in the call, there is a lot that is not in our control. And this whole experience has been about relinquishing our control sort of to the universe. One thing that we're not in control of is the spot in the geographic location of our county. Our county has done a really good job of slowing the spread, and we have remained, thankfully, unaffected by this disease in comparison to some other communities. But we are surrounded by counties that are seeing dramatic upticks in infection. And so when the state makes these decisions, they're going to be looking at us in complement to where we are in the state, not just in isolation from the rest of the state. So we have to look to the state for their wisdom. And we really, really appreciate your patience and your willingness to pivot. And we all hate that word now. I like to think of the Friends episode where Ross and Rachel are trying to move the couch up the stairs and screaming pivot at each other. I also want to just take a minute. We've thanked Garrett, we've thanked Rachel, and I want to thank my team. Our Downtown SLO team over the last 8 weeks has just done a phenomenal job of trying to get a virtual downtown up, pivoting to use social media in really exciting ways, trying to push out information at a breathtaking speed. And I just really value and appreciate each of you so very much. So that is drawing us to the end of our hour. We are Downtown SLO. We hope that you've had a chance to look at the beautiful video. and that you've had a chance to look at the Mayflowers. Thank you all for participating in those fun activities. I think we have about 76 windows now downtown. And we continue to work with our peer organizations, the International Downtown Association, the California Downtown Association, Main Street America. And we actually got featured in the Main Street America blog last week because of the Mayflower Initiative, and our creativity, your creativity, and the artists have helped move that forward. So we tried to answer some questions as we were going through right now. Hopefully we have seen, we have tried to answer as best we can the questions that you raised today. And I assure you that all of the people who are on this call are available for additional questions should you have them. And we'd be happy to get you in touch with them individually. And there are also lots of links within the chat window. So to all of you, be well, enjoy this Monday. And Garrett, thank you. We will miss you. Thank you for keeping our community food secure. And to all, be well.